Thank you for tuning in to Cop with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen. We're here with Comic CT Adams. CT Adams, how the hell are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much for coming on. I follow you everywhere you are. I mean, I'm trying to beg you to get a Twitter account, but in the meantime, I enjoy you on Instagram. You are CTA Comedy, but also you're ctacomedy.com. And I guess you also have a YouTube channel that's easy to get through via ctacomedy.com.
Yes, I try to make it easy.
Oh, yeah, real quick, tell me what you got coming up, because I think this drops January 9th. This drops tomorrow. What do you got coming up that you're excited about?
Oh, sure. Well, I got shows here in Los Angeles, January 10th, 14th, 25th, whatever. You can find me on Instagram. I think people that want to find you will find you.
Yes.
Also, as a side note, if you want to find me on the wine side, my website is thewinejerk.com.
Because, yeah, he's super serious about wine, but we're going to try to make it hilarious because, of course, if anybody can, it's CT Adams. Have you been on Hot Medusa comedy show yet with Sue Weaver?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, the show that I'm doing January 28th, I'll be hosting Hot Medusa Comedy Show. So come out for that if you love comedy.
She said it was going to be outside, which is amazing for COVID. But then I remembered, oh, shit, it's kind of cold. But she said it's going to be heated. But then she reminded me that LA is not very cold right now. How cold is it out there?
Oh, it's not very cold.
Did you have snow? You didn't have snow, did you?
No snow. We had a cold snap last week where it might have dropped down. We might have had some frost in the morning, and then it was in the 50s. But that's California cold.
You had to put on your blazer.
Used to 98 degrees. 48 degrees is cold.
Oh no! You have to pull out the blazer that you're sporting anyway in some of these pictures.
Well, that's it. Right. Well, I lived in Colorado for a short while before coming to Los Angeles full time, and here in Los Angeles, you keep your coats for more than one season, which is unheard of if you live in a wintry town.
Because you get no use out of it.
Because you wear it every day in a wintry town, but here in LA, it's 3 times a year. So whatever, that's why it's always a black leather coat. It's whatever looks good.
Yes.
Classic look. You can't.
Yeah, you buy one fashionable winter coat and it lasts forever. Yeah. It never goes out of fashion if it's black leather. Are you really serious? I mean, you said winejerk.com. Are you the wine jerk?
Yeah, I'm the wine jerk. Winejerk.com. That's how I started. The reason is, I'll just tell you, it's because I don't care about price or points. Now, if you work a lot in the wine business, obviously we all know what the price is, but the point system, it's a 0 to 100 point system. But really, it's like an 85 to 100 point system. You know what I mean? And so people hear, it's like a Pitchfork or Rolling Stone or Siskel and Ebert 2 thumbs up or whatever you want, 5-star Uber rating, so to speak. And I just realized that you can't, in order to sell wine, to push the enjoyment of wine, you have to kind of go against the system. And there's the name. Also, my very first job, I was a soda jerk. If you have any old listeners.
Oh, so so you're not a jerk. It's just kind of a callback to soda jerk. Were you a jerk even when you were a soda jerk?
Well, not when I was a soda jerk. I was a kid back then. But as a wine, I didn't realize I was being so mean towards these, what I'm going to just call top 40 wines for the rest of the show.
Okay.
It's the same way with top 40 music. It represents what's popular. It does not represent what you like.
So tell me how it's different. So you put on classes and things like that. I'm looking at your website, ctacomedy.com. Mm-hmm. And then, for the wine jerk portion of the website, let's look at it here.
Yeah, I do all kinds of private events. Most people I feel like it's easier to teach people in private. They kind of don't want to be embarrassed, so they don't want to play the gotcha game. And so I just try to come up with the real classic knowledge. And I just want to show them how this classic knowledge will help you in all forms.
So are you working comedy into it?
Well, that's how I kind of got my start in comedy, was people were paying me to come to their house and make them laugh for an hour. And then one guy wrote, I got my laugh on, I got my drink on, I got my learn on. And I thought, man, I should put that as my logo.
Yeah, I was about to say, where is that on thewinejerk.com?
That should be it, right? Get your drink on, get your learn on.
Because it's not, if you come to their house or whatever, and you kind of go
That's
anywhere?
At the house.
Conference room? At the house. Okay.
No, I go to the house. Okay, so a typical one is usually people pay for like the hour or the 2-hour tasting. Okay. I show up with the bottles of wine. We go through each wine and I kind of explain. I don't try to overload. It's usually 4, 5, 6 wines. And then what I do is you got all the wines open, you got the new knowledge, then I leave, and you and your friends can party all night with your new knowledge and with these wines and enjoy yourselves.
And so how do you pick the wines? Is it different for every house? Do they give you some preferences?
whatever they like, preferences. If you just want to learn about the basics, ABC tastings is anything but Chardonnay, anything but Cabernet. Sometimes like a trip to the basics helps people remember why they like something. Some people get a reputation about Merlot or Pinot Noir. I don't know if you remember the film Sideways, but that changed the trajectory of my career entirely.
Okay. How so?
That movie came out and everybody decided they wanted to learn about Pinot Noir. And
Okay.
everybody decided that Merlot was going to be the bad wine. Oh, that's the corporate bullshit wine.
And
but
you
the
knew
truth
about
is-
wine. You knew about wine, and so you had to educate people otherwise.
Right. And so I spent a good 2 years just talking about that movie. Every time people came in the wine store, that's all they wanted to talk about.
Are you based in a
The
wine
movie?
store, or were you at that point?
I
Okay.
used to work in Studio City and right here in Los Angeles in the Valley. Very old wine store, really fun wine store. Actually, this is the same liquor store, wine store that Adam Carolla worked at in the 1980s. That's how long it's been there. It's hilarious. Although when I was there, it had sold to some new owners, so it's not quite the same. But yeah, now I'm independent. What I try to do is I try to let people know. I try to take the scary out of wine. My whole thing is that if it's not a delicious wine to you, who cares?
Right.
Right. If you tell me that this song won a Grammy, but I don't like the song, I really don't care.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good analogy because all the top 40 shit.
That's what I tell
there's
people.
probably better songs that are just like it by indie artists, right?
Sure. Is Titanic one of the greatest movies of all time? No, it's not. I'll just say it right on. I'm an expert here, Brian. You're talking to an expert. No, it is not one of the best movies of all, and yet it won, and so therefore it must be respected. You know what I mean? And so when you do with like, so here's what I used to do for some of my clients because I had some we'll call them heavy hitter A-listers.
Okay.
And I taste them on a wine and they go, oh, this is delicious. I want to serve this at my party. How much is this? And I go, $40 a bottle. And they go, oh, it's too cheap. Oh God. Oh, they'll laugh me out of the place. Oh, it's got to be at least $100 a bottle.
Oh,
and I was like, you son of a bitch. So I set up a tasting for this guy. He comes in, I got 7 bottles lined up. They're all $100.
Okay.
I go, now taste these wines because you've already bought these wines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to charge you because you can afford it.
Yeah, drink up.
Let's drink these wines.
Okay.
So we try all 7 wines. He says, I don't like these. I do like these. I go, no, you like them all because they're all $100. Right? So even if you don't like this wine, which I can see on your face, you don't like it, you're going to serve it because it's $100. And he was like, why would I serve it if I don't like it? And I go, exactly.
Yeah. And so you talked that person down to a $40
And so
bottle.
all of a sudden they were like, all right, we settled on like some $80 stuff.
There you go.
It was fine. But my whole thing is drink what you like. Here it is. 3 rules for wine bliss.
Okay.
Drink what you like what you drink, don't drink white Zinfandel.
Now, why not? What if I like white Zinfandel?
Well, if you like it, it's fine, but just understand that that's not real wine. That's like the Kool-Aid of wine.
Okay. I'm drinking Kool-Aid. Okay.
Yeah, it was absolutely a mistake. There was a process called stuck fermentation, discovered by a very lucky man named Bob Trinchero. Most of the time they would throw that out because they would consider it bad wine, but he was like, F it, let's just bottle it.
Drunk.
If
He's
you're
drunk
under
at
age
the time.
25,
F
he
it.
would just say, he looked at that whole stuck fermentation and looked at all these gallons of wine and just said, I'm just going to send it.
Yeah.
And then boom, a legend was born, $1 million mistake.
Well, I guess, that kind of, let's talk real quick about kind of, I don't know, the role of passion and hobbies and side hustles and all that stuff when it comes to comedy. Like,
Sure.
Because you're not always just entertaining in the form of the winejerk.com. You're also, doing stand-up. And so kind of, do you have to be passionate about what you're talking about on stage? Do you have to be authentic?
I feel like it's a combination of both. If you are a hardened road veteran, sometimes you're kind of unconscious while you're giving your best sets because you've been through the material thousands of times.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of looking for cues within yourself as opposed to when you're really like kind of unsure of yourself and you're really looking to the audience for cues. It's like every art form, I suppose. In the beginning, you hope somebody will appreciate your version. And then at the end, you kind of, if you really live to the end, you become a tyrant and you're like, now my version is the only version you should enjoy.
Like you're
as all good comics
anti-Zinfandel,
are.
right?
Right.
Well, so how are you I mean, what are you passionate about on stage when you're not kind of entertaining through wine? Like,
Oh,
how did you
sure.
kind of discover that? Because, like, at what point did you discover wine? Before you worked at the wine store, and that's why you worked there, or because of the
Oh,
wine store?
well, I started off as a bartender many, many years ago. I
Okay.
grew up in Palm Springs, California,
Okay.
and I was a bartender. And one day I discovered that I liked the wine people more than I liked the vodka people.
It's like improv
Right?
or stand-up or something like that. I
Right.
love it.
4 glasses of wine and you're still kind of stuttering and you're fine, but 4 glasses of vodka and then I got to call the cops on you. So it just kind of gradually went from there. I get like temporary jobs at wine stores, and it became very, very easy for me to talk about wine.
Okay.
Then I had a back injury that took me out of the wine bartending world because I
Okay.
just didn't have the power to stand.
Okay.
So after a couple of years of rehab, I kind of got back into it slowly, and I just discovered that the wine world was a little less physically strenuous than bartending.
Okay.
And so that's kind of just led me to it. I moved to LA and because I wanted to be a wine guy. And there just wasn't that, it's hard in the desert. It's hard to keep wine cool when it's 110 degrees out.
Ah.
But here in LA, there's lots of places that are, years old, lots of tradition, lots of wine, lots of people to buy your wine. But that also led to me discovering that I did not like what I would consider, the top 40 wines.
Right.
I always was finding better, intricate little secrets, some known, some not so well known. And then that kind of became my palate for wine, was like, oh, instead of this, try this. And eventually you realize you're kind of on the independent side.
Yeah. Because that's a choice. I mean, it's like, writing about Taylor Swift for Rolling Stone, or being kind of an indie but well-respected, Stephen Hayden, who used to write about music for Grantland or whatever. Like,
exactly.
I suppose one is more lucrative than the other. Like do sommeliers at the best restaurant, 4-star restaurants, do they make a lot more money than, somebody who's pursuing the indie route?
Absolutely. And, I never went the route of the sommelier because to me, that's like, it'd be like getting a degree that I would never use.
Yes.
Because sommeliers are really about the selling of wine, and I am really about the enjoyment of wine. My whole thing is, if you drink it, like it. If you don't like it, push it away. We'll find something else for you. Surely I can find, that was kind of my superpower, was being able to, like I said, and you use that in comedy, right? Not that, well, I don't like to do a lot of crowd work, but sometimes you have to. Shit happens. And you need to assess the situation and then react accordingly. And since you're an entertainer and the object is to sell, you kind of want to give the audience what they want.
Right.
And for me, I assume that the audience wants a thoughtful, well-written joke that's crafted and told in a funny way. I like to look at it like we're all kind of in the same shit together, observing it. I don't really like the holier than thou comic or the, I don't go too much in the neurotic Richard Lewis type.
Okay.
I just feel like it's been done so much. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But listen, I like to talk about everything. I don't even talk about wine very much in the act because I save those jokes for when I'm getting paid to do wine stuff.
Oh, yeah.
In my act, though, I feel like there always needs to be a kernel of truth in your jokes.
Yeah.
If a joke comes out and it's about something on the news, which we call those kind of late night jokes, because you know that everybody's going to be writing a joke about it. You need that to even be kind of like understanding. Where's it coming from? Is it worth talking about? And if it is, let's find a way to incorporate some truth instead of just, like, I don't go pure whimsy.
But so my question though is like, you being an indie fan, of course you have your favorites. Okay, if this guy likes this $400 bottle of wine that tastes like this, he's going to really love this $40 bottle of wine that tastes like this. And so, and I guess my question is, on stage, how are you kind of detecting what your crowd's going to be into? Do you have anything in your act that kind of works as like kind of Rorschach tests or something where you're like, oh, they're really getting that first silly joke. Oh, and they're really hating that second academic joke. Let me go the silly route.
I see what you're saying. I don't really plan that, but I feel like every comic should have that. Like you should definitely have kind of what I call escape routes, dropout plans.
Escape routes better, yeah.
I mean, Bill Hicks used to say, whatever you do, you're not married to any of this shit.
Yeah.
If something happens taking you off on a tangent, never go back and finish a bit. Just move on. And that is that's a principle I abide by. I don't like it when comics go, oh my God, I'm sorry, what was I talking about? I get it if it's like a half-hour bit and you were, something really bizarre happened.
Yeah.
But like to me, the opposite of comedy is to look into your phone and to say, gosh, what else did I want to talk about tonight? that's like, well, you should just do only Zoom comedy. You should
Right.
not be.
And so you don't believe in kind of breaking down that fourth wall, even if it can get an additional.
Oh no,
chocolate.
listen, I'll pull a note, but I'll have respect for the audience and I'll write it on a white card or I'll have a piece of paper. I just feel like I know that we all live on our phones now, but I just feel like that piece of the fourth wall is such a disconnect.
Oh, okay.
To go out and like, oh, let me take a picture of this crowd real quick with my phone.
Yeah, so I can tag everybody in the selfie. Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, oh, okay. But, when does the joke portion of your act begin, sir? Or madam, whatever
But something like what material are you really like? You're like, man, even if an audience doesn't get it, I'm really passionate about this one thing and I really need them to hear it in some sort of way. And so you keep knocking your head against the wall, being like, man, sure. I love this. It's like, I love this indie wine. I love this. I love this indie material. Sure. How can I work it in?
Everybody has that, right? What's like your favorite, but then nobody gets it but you. Like,
yeah. So what is that for you? Kind of what's the subject you're passionate about?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's bipartisan. Like I'm tired of both parties. So what would say bipartisan fatigue.
Okay.
I'm tired of it just being about like, I'm saying this Trump joke because I want the anti-Trumpers to laugh, or I'm saying this Biden joke because I want these, and I'm tired of your material being the dividing line.
Yeah.
I make fun of everybody because to me, they're all, I'll just tell you, the name of one of my bits is, all presidents are shithead to me. That's my nickname for every president.
Okay.
Like, look, this shithead that just got in the White House, he's just got to calm down and let's let shithead get to work. He's got to make up for the last shithead, and it's been that way my entire life. Every president from, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush.
And is it something they all have in common, or can you point out
I don't know what it is. I feel like that it's almost like that old Groucho Marx joke. I wouldn't want to be a member of any society that would invite me to be a member.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you have to do evil to get even to that level of being like Jimmy Carter proved that you can't be a nice guy and be a good president for America because they're just the opposite things. So, but my whole thing is that it's like literally two sides of the same mirror. I understand there's ideological differences, but when you tell a joke, as soon as you say certain words, people assume that you are on a certain side of a fence, and then they've decided that everything out of your mouth, you are the enemy or you are an ally, even if you are or are not. Or even if you don't know that you realize that you triggered them with a certain word.
So do you take the words out, or do you play with the notion that they've been triggered?
I'll go both ways.
Okay.
Because to me, the wordplay is where comedy lies within.
Okay.
That's every great joke is, oh, I thought you meant, forehead, like it's that's every premise. We thought that like, if you know anything about the sitcoms of the 60s and 70s and 80s, most of those half-hour episodes would be about 12 seconds in modern day time because you would just text the guy and go, did you say you were coming tomorrow at 3? And he'd be like, no, I said next Friday at 3. Oh, cool. See you next week. And then the credits would roll and that'd be the whole show. But the classicness of our, true communication and true miscommunication, and dysfunction, that's kind of the driver of all comedy. I'm sure you've seen Curb Your Enthusiasm. Right?
I've been avoiding it actually. It's just I couldn't get into it, man. It's just
to
improv?
Me,
it's like improv or something.
It's the same joke over and over. This gentleman gets into it's like Mr. Bean or Bugs Bunny or any of those kind of shows where you have like a main character and then every show is just him getting into wacky situations.
And it's because of why his temper and he holds a grudge like Costanza,
right,
or what?
Right. And who knows? Listen, I'm not shitting them. Those guys are geniuses making millions of dollars. Who am I to judge? But I'm just saying, for me personally, it feels like there's other ways to express your comedy. Like, not everything has to be
a misunderstanding.
I don't know. Right. Not everything is the same joke.
Okay.
So
then how do you do? Do you dwell in that? Do you clarify that uncertainty, or what do you do? Do you often talk about politics on stage?
It depends upon how I'm feeling and also how the audience is feeling.
For example, do you have a January 6th? Do you have a January 6th insurrection joke at all?
No.
Or do you leave it out because you just hate the divisiveness of it?
No, that's a good question. No, the truth is, I do have bits about the Michigan protesters. And so I realized that in order to upgrade it, you're going to have to include the January 6th protesters in
You
that.
thought Michigan was it. Tip of the iceberg.
Well, because the Michigan was so insane that I'm like,
Yeah.
there's nothing that could top this.
Yeah.
Those stories were incredible. Like bringing an M16 to fight the COVID. Like the COVID doesn't understand the firepower. And the COVID also doesn't understand that it's January 2022 because the COVID doesn't understand the Gregorian calendar or seasons. And so I don't think that it knows it's supposed to go away because you have a gun or because you're tired of it.
Yeah.
And so like that kind of logic, sometimes it's hard to break through to people because they don't get it.
But I mean, so how can you even elevate something that's so zany as awful, but zany as the Michigan thing? Like, why did you focus on that as something that I really have to dig into this?
A lot of people feel like that's how they feel. People like, well, if, look at history, it's going on now at the Michigan militia. I lived in Michigan for a short while when I was a young boy. I was like 5 and 6.
Okay.
And then I had to go to Michigan for work for my career when I was still in the wine business. And so I like Michigan. It's beautiful. It's a great spot. I mean, everything but the cars and the potholes, but like Michigan has a huge population of people from Iraq, what are they called? Chaldean Christians?
Really?
Chaldean. I'm getting it mixed up with some other sect and I am embarrassed to even say it, but there's this huge, and they almost entirely live in Detroit and San Diego. Weird. And I was like, what? Why? Everybody I met in Detroit had a cousin in San Diego. And I thought, how funny that people don't know Michigan for what it really is. Grosse Pointe and the bridge and Mackinac Island and and they don't understand how Flint has just been like left behind with all this terrible stuff. And to me, but they're focusing on trying to kidnap the governor and how I don't want to wear a mask.
And so in your joke, do you talk about that? Like, do you talk about the fact that there's like actually legitimate things to be pissed off about?
I mean, a little bit. Like, I would be mad I would really be mad if my water was poisoned the way the Michigan water was poisoned. And I think that if it had happened, and let's just be real, if it had happened to a whiter, richer community, I don't think that it would just be underground story for 10 years.
Yeah, so the M16 to the Capitol wouldn't have been that. There might have been some sympathy there, or empathy there.
Listen, I get it. You want to fight the tyranny of the government. But that tyranny didn't start with the coronavirus. Have you ever tried to own a small business? Have you ever tried to own a property in California and gotten these bullshit taxes? And you do feel like, boy, I feel like taking up arms against this and fighting for what's right.
Yeah.
There's let there be no discretion. Like that is how you feel.
Yeah.
But I think that, the measure of success is to achieve and not to blame.
Yeah.
I am not a very successful comedian. Okay. Is that because I'm not grinding enough, or because I'm not marketable enough, or because I'm not blah blah blah? And who knows? But I can't sit around and wait for those things. All I can do is just make my act better. Is come on your podcast and talk about some fun stuff and like just get myself out there.
Yeah,
I get it. And I understand you can't do the same thing and expect different results.
Yeah.
However, there's something to be said about committing, whether it's to a bit or to a goal.
Right.
And then following through.
But I love that. Like, what would that look like for a comedian to kind of grind away and then get so pissed off that nothing's working for him or her? Or they they go to where? They go to the Comedy Cellar, or they go to, I don't know, the Comedy Chateau or the Comedy Store, and they kidnap Mitzi Shore if she were alive.
Oh, I know, that seems like a plot to a movie.
That's what you should write it.
Put me on, I'll be fun. Bud Freeman Jr. kidnapped. Oh my goodness. You know what I mean, I don't know. I don't know how it is for other comics, but once again, COVID has changed everything. Zoom changed everything.
Okay.
Because trying to, Zoom comedy is totally different. And it's almost like the difference between improv and stand-up.
Okay.
To me, Zoom comedy is like throwing your jokes into the void.
Yeah.
And you hope that if you ever performed in a really large room where you're separated from the audience and maybe there's TV cameras in front of you.
Okay.
That is what it feels like, because you're like, nobody's going to like this shit. Here I go. And then you just like, wow. But it happens.
And they pipe in laughter and you're like, that's not how it was on stage, man. They were like,
oh yeah. That's the old A&E at the improv stories, right? When like, just act like you're killing and we'll sweeten it up later.
But they don't have to do that for CT Adams. They can book CT Adams for their own home and he'll bring the wine, right?
Oh yeah, I've been doing these Zoom tastings, which are fun too, because once again, we don't want to drink and drive. We want to get that, the first thing I tell my clients is alcohol is poison. Okay.
Okay.
Alcohol is poison.
But if you're
And
gonna
getting
drink,
drunk, well, getting drunk is the
Right.
first sign of poisoning. It is very enjoyable, and we like that.
right.
So we poison ourselves. The second sign is when your body says no more, and that's when you decide to throw up, right? I'm going to eject.
Okay.
And the third time is when your body just is like, no, I'm going to shut down, and that's when we pass out.
Oh, I
So
love
if
that.
you mess up any of those steps, artificially stay awake, then the alcohol will really be poison to you, and you really feel bad the next day.
I can't believe you
Also,
know the
make
other
sure you
side.
drink
You're
a
the
lot of
wine.
water.
You're the wine jerk, and you're admitting some of these painful truths.
This is what I'm saying, dude. But the truth is the only thing that will set you free.
Okay. And so you might as
Mhm.
well, if you're going to poison yourself, you might as well enjoy the $40 bottle of wine that CT Adams has chosen for you.
That is, thank you. That's
Well, good. Follow him everywhere. I do. He's CTA Comedy on Instagram. I'm begging him to get a Twitter, but ctacomedy.com is where you can find that YouTube, but also The Wine Jerk if you give a shit about good tasting wine, right? And a good time.
Yes. And a good time. That's
Yeah.
the key.
Because what's the tagline again? You drink.
Oh, here it is.
There it is.
Drink what you like what you drink. Don't drink White Zinfandel.